there's often this imposter syndrome, right? About no, but I don't have the skills, the knowledge to teach people to do that. It's like to teach people things, you just need to know a little bit more than they do. You don't need to be an expert. You want to build
Yes,
depth with the audience rather than just building the biggest audience possible. Because it's
exactly.
not because you have a million people following you that they trust you at all. Yeah,
There was an Instagram star who had 2 million followers, and they couldn't sell 34 t-shirts to their 2 million audience.
and it doesn't mean you're gonna succeed. It doesn't mean you're gonna get it right. But at least you won't regret trying anything. Maybe after 1 year you're gonna be like, that was not what I thought it would be, and you're gonna go back to where you were before, and that's fine. But you would have tried it.
Welcome, Jeremy, to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so today we're mainly going to be covering entrepreneurship, your story, and advice you have for aspiring entrepreneurs. What business do you currently run?
So I run an online yoga school. It's called the Royal Flow School. We've been running for a little bit more than 2 years now. We started the company in February, March 2022. And yeah, it's a fully online digital company based in the US. So it's me and my business partner. And yeah, we teach yoga. We teach people who wants to become yoga teacher everything they need to know, and also existing yoga teachers how to continue the yoga education, basically.
Perfect. And what role do you play in the business? What are the aspects that you manage?
A lot. When you start a business as a co-founder, especially at the beginning, you have to do kind of everything that has to be done, right? Um, if I have to summarize it in a very easy way, it's an online yoga school. My friend is the yoga. I am the online. That's how I like to present it. Uh, my business partner has got like more than 20 years of experience teaching yoga, and I have more than 10 years working with computer in a very broad sense. I've been a software developer for like 5 years, and then I did a lot of operation, customer support, stuff like that. So I have a lot of experience just, yeah, working with anything tech related. So yeah, I do quite a lot. I basically set up the entire school. I edit all our trainings, all our content. I take care of all the back end of the different applications that we use. I run the operation. I run the customer support. Yeah, the only thing that I really don't do at all because I don't like it is like marketing and stuff like that because it's really not my jam. But the reality is that when you're a small business, you have to try to do everything at the beginning because especially when you don't have much capital, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. That makes sense. So who's handling the marketing?
It's my business partner, Adrian.
Okay.
He's much better at that. And I'm kind of allergic to social media. I just don't really like it. So yeah, he's handling all that for us.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. So it sounds like you've figured out a good split for yourselves. So I
Yeah.
guess, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, it's actually interesting because we are very different human beings in terms of personality and also in terms of skill set, which could be complicated on paper, but it's actually a very good match to start a business because we complement each other. I don't know if you're familiar with the book Rocket Fuel. It's a
No,
business book that was written I don't know a while ago. I read it like 2 years ago, and in the book they describe the fact that as an entrepreneur, usually there are two type of people. You have the visionary, the people that have a really good vision, but usually struggle with the execution. And then you have more of the operator, the executor, who's maybe lack vision, doesn't have the ideas, a bit less creative, but is very good at executing and getting shit done. and and I think Adrian, my business partner, is the visionary, and I am the operator, and that's why I think we're a good match.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I've even heard, often a lot of husband and wife businesses, they tend to be very similarly complementary to each other, where often it's the husband who's the visionary and the CEO, and the wife who's great with people and ends up being the COO and managing all the operations and day to day. And sometimes it's the other way
Yeah.
around, right? But
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense, and you definitely don't want too much overlap and then a big blind spot.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's this interesting idea I heard from Alex Hormozy. Have you heard of him?
Yeah. Yeah. I do.
Okay. So basically, he talked about how each business he started, he was in gyms, then supplements, then software. But in each business he was in, he realized the business was not actually about what he thought it was about. So gyms, he thought, were all about fitness and health. But it turns out they were really about sales and marketing because you have to keep getting clients in the door. And then supplements, he thought it was all about what ingredients are in the supplements and the quality of the product. But it turns out it was all about branding and the storytelling and the narrative because people care much more about the way the product makes them feel than what's actually in the product. And then the third business was software. And he thought, oh, this is just going to be sales and marketing like everything else. But it turns out there it was about the product because really good software sells itself, right? Because it just solves a business problem and it makes businesses money. So I guess my question to you is, what did you initially think Warrior Flow Yoga was about, or Warrior Flow School? Sorry, and then
Yeah.
what do you now realize it's truly about in terms of scaling it, growing it, sustaining it?
That's very interesting. Yeah. At the beginning, it was just a yoga school. It's like we know that we need to create this product, which is a yoga teacher training. We know exactly what we need to do to execute on that. We need to film content. Adrian has got all the knowledge that he needs to create that. We need to edit it, package it in a way. So at the beginning, it started as a product business. Like we have a product in mind. We need to put it out there, and it's all about yoga. And if the product is good, it will hopefully sell itself. So that was the idea at the beginning. However, 2 years down the line, now I realize that it is actually a people business, and the key is the storytelling and the marketing. More than sales and marketing, I would say storytelling. The reason I'm saying that is because the reality is that yoga is a very crowded market. There's a lot of teaching out there. If you Google yoga teacher training online, you're going to have thousands and thousands of things, going from a few $100 to a few thousands and thousands of dollars. So the price range is really broad. So competition is hard. So you do need to differentiate yourself. Just having, hey, I've got a yoga teacher training, come to take my training. Why? So you do need to create a story around your product. Otherwise, you're just going to be one of a million out there, and it's unlikely that you're going to grow. You might survive, but you won't grow, and it won't be sustainable long term. And that's been our struggle, to be honest, for the past, I would say, 12 months, 10 months. The beginning was easy because we knew exactly which training we had to create. There is this, it feels easy at the beginning because there is an excitement. When you announce something, you always have the early adopters coming in and jumping on the first thing that you do. So you don't have to put too much effort into selling it, kind of sell itself. But then once this first wave of early adopters got the training, and you need to really find the right people for your product, that's where it gets tricky because you need to be clever in how you communicate about what you do. You need to have a proper strategy. Otherwise you're not going to do anything. You have to differentiate yourself, and that's where I think the hard work really begins. And yeah, like finding the right words and the right way to explain what we do and what our product is about and why it's different with other teacher training is really where we are right now. Because yeah, like we need to grow. If you want to make the school sustainable and long term, we need to expand our base. I would say also globally, because we can do that because it's an online business, so we don't rely on the American market where the company is based. But that requires a good marketing strategy, and none of us are experts in marketing, so it's a lot of trial and error. We try things, analyze it, and try again and figure out.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's how everybody has to learn marketing. Trial and error.
Yeah.
It's the best way. I don't think anyone is born knowing it. I don't think a marketing degree can teach you it. It can just get you the foundation to start.
Right.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been passionate about sales and marketing for a long time, and I guess positioning as well and branding. So Seth Godin, I think, is my favorite author for all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So he talks about positioning in a beautiful way, and it sounds like right now you are just trying to figure out your brand identity and your positioning. You're trying to say, okay, where in the market of all the yoga online stuff do we fit in? And so when our customers think of us, how do they think of us in a way that's completely different from every other yoga studio?
Yeah, and I think this is something that we did figure out quite recently in this first half of the year. So now is knowing now, how do we reach those people online? How do we put ourselves in front of their eyes? And how do we get them to trust us? Because what I discover when I read, recently I read the latest Gary Vee's book on marketing, day trading attention. And he's talking a lot about social media marketing, social media ads and stuff like that. But the reality also is like the training that we sell costs more than $2,000 because it's like a 200-hour training. So it's a 6 months commitment. So it's a high ticket item. And it's not easy to convince someone that is just meeting you online to give you more than 2K, just like that. Like, and I get that as a user, right? Like if I see something that costs $20 for the first time in my life, I might buy it because it's $20, right? It's not going to change my life, but I'm not going to give 2 or 3K to a random company that I've never seen before. I'm going to have to learn to trust them before I do that. So it's going to take time between the moment someone discovers you online and between the time someone buy a training from us. It can be like months and months and months. We had some people telling us, I've been following you for 18 months before actually pulling the trigger and registering for a training. So that's something also to take into account, is that we need to earn people trust through our messages.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad to hear you love reading books like that as well. There's another book called The Speed of Trust that I really loved. Years ago, I read this book, but it really taught me that the speed at which a business operates and grows is really the speed of trust between employees and also between customers in the business. Because the greater the trust, the quicker the decisions. So the faster they buy, but also the faster you or your team decide to implement something or are collaboratively are doing your steps, right? There's less uncertainty, less doubts, and so on. Less double checking. Yeah. So trust, and on a second note, I also think trust is really the new asset, more so than money. Because if you have trust, and I think this is why people talk about building audiences, because when you're building an audience, what you're really building is trust. And you can monetize on that trust a lot better than you can monetize on existing revenue, for example. So trust.
And it's interesting what you said about building an audience. I would say building a proper audience. I don't know how to phrase it properly, but it's like the 1,000 true fan, right? You want to build depth with the audience rather than just building the biggest audience possible, because it's not because you have 1 million people following you that they trust you at all. You want to build this connection, this relationship with them, and the number, the size of the audience doesn't matter as much as the relationship and the connection that you have with it, I think.
The quality of the audience, yes, absolutely. There was an Instagram star who had 2 million followers, and they couldn't sell 34 t-shirts to their 2 million audience. So and that's the thing. If you go viral, for example, you'll build a very disparate audience. None of them are there for a specific reason. There's not a specific thing timed together. And Another great thing is if you collect data on your audience or you have questionnaires or surveys or things like that, you can actually over time figure out, well, what is the lifetime value of each of my customers, but also who are the top 20% of those? And what are the characteristics that tie those top 20% together? And then how can we now focus our ads and all of our customer acquisition on targeting those top 20%? And so over time, your audience will become 100% of those people rather than 20%.
Yeah. It's also an interesting one because, and actually think about that because I was doing that yesterday, about asking your audience slash potential clients slash fan what they want, like kind of including them into your strategy, because I think they appreciate it. It makes them feel part of the adventure in a way. It makes them feel a bit special. So I think it's something interesting to do in terms of like human relationship and building trust. Um, However, as a business owner, I've learned to take the answers very carefully because what people say they want and what they actually want and what they're ready to buy from you can be very different. And, you might ask 100 people, 1,000 people, hey, if I do X, is that something that you would like? Is that something that you would consider joining, buying, whatever? And you're going to have maybe more than 50% saying, yes, this is an amazing idea. And people love the idea. But then once it's there, you will get a fraction of those people. Because I don't think people know what they really want. And yeah, it is a very interesting thing to navigate because at the beginning we did that. I said, hey, what do you want? Oh, we want this. Okay, let's spend hours and hours doing this. And then what about, okay, guys, it's here now. Please buy it, do something. And it's like all this time and energy not wasted, but not as, yeah, you don't get your return on investment, let's say. And it's a bit frustrating.
Yes, completely understandable. I think one way to solve this is to have a deposit or a pre-order of some kind or a
Yeah.
Kickstarter, right? All of these are ways where people put their money where their mouth is. So, for example, Elon Musk, he's very smart with this. For the Model 3, he had pre-orders. And for the Cybertruck, he had a $100 deposit. And over 1 million people put down a $100 deposit. So they made $100 million with no product.
And some
then
people
he
have
could
put a
go,
deposit on the Roadster in 2017, and it's been 7 years, and this product is maybe never going to go out. And all this money in the bank is bringing back interest, and they're making a lot of money from that.
Exactly. And now Musk can go to investors. He can go to factories, production places, and he can say, look, we've got $100 million in interest. Even if 5% of those people actually buy the Cybertruck, we can afford to make it. So let's make it.
Yeah.
So that's very smart.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then there's this other story I heard recently from Daniel Priestley. He's another marketing guy. And he talks about really what sells people is not value, but the tension of supply and demand, and which then enhances perceived value. So the example he gives for this is the Glastonbury Music Festival, which is apparently the most successful music festival in the world, even more so than Coachella. And he says that out of the whole year, their ticket sales are only open for 30 minutes. And they get about 700,000 people registering interest. And then they just send out an email the day before saying, look, we have 700,000 people interested. We only have 160,000 tickets. Ticket sales open at 5 a.m. tomorrow. So people set their alarm. They're all in line. They're waiting for the webpage to load. They're refreshing. And then they press the button and they buy it. And they don't even know which bands are going to be on stage. That's how in demand it is. And Glastonbury, they've really mastered this style of marketing. And so what they are ultimately selling is not for purchases, but for signals of interest. And I think this is something that could really help your yoga school, because there was another study where they had two identical communities with the same content and the same setup structure. And in one, they just allowed people to come in. And then they asked people, how do you rate this community? And they said it was boring. It wasn't very good. Then the exact same thing they had, but they had people wait on a wait list. And then they had people do a short intake interview to qualify them. And so people had to jump through some hoops. And then people rated the quality, and they said it was amazing, and they loved it. And the only difference was that they had to do more work to get into the second one. So people value things that they feel are scarce, things that they do more work for, and things that they wait for. So since it sounds like you have to build trust, one thing that can help is having a wait list. And then people can consume your content and you can send them newsletter things. And then that helps build trust. And then when it opens, you say, look, this cohort is only this size. And we're going to, there are only 200 spots. So
Yeah.
sales will close in a week, but they might fill up even before that. So get your spot while it's available.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So ultimately, I feel all this is all about human psychology and human connections, right? Like whatever product you sell, like you said, like music, an online product, or whatever business you're in, being hosting a music festival, selling a digital or physical product. There's two things. It's all about the experience that you provide to your guests or clients or people interested in what you do, and how can you make them feel, I was going to say special, but just say, can you make them feel something for a start?
Yes.
I think whatever it is, it's key, because we all want to feel something. It's all about the emotion that this product is providing us, and whatever it is for the person, then that's the right fit. But yeah, it is interesting, right? How creating a fake scarcity behind the product, it can create so much appeal when it's not fake, but kind of, right? Like creating like a virtual wall. It's totally virtual, and you could open the floodgate to all the people that you want, but just by creating these things, like, it makes you feel special. You're part of the circle, right?
Yes.
And I think it's because as human beings, we like to belong to a tribe or to a community or whatever. And if the door is open and everyone can join in, that means you can be part of. You're no one because you're everyone. But if you can be part of this special group, it's like, oh, I'm in, right?
Yes,
it's kind of satisfying. I think I don't know, the child that wasn't picked at school in the team or stuff like that, right? It's like, oh, I'm in this time. Like I'm with the cool kids, or I'm with the people, or whatever. And yeah, I think all business, whatever you sell, it's all about understanding human behavior. And I think once you have mastered that, you can sell pretty much anything to people.
Absolutely. And I really think, for me also, the shifting turning point was realizing that this genuinely adds value for people, right? Like if you do this, more people will complete the course, thereby improving their lives, thereby becoming yoga teachers and changing their lives, than if you didn't do this. So it's an act of service. So that really, from Seth Godin, changed my mind about marketing. Because I used to think marketing was sleazy, right? It was like that door-to-door salesman. Now I realize marketing is an act of service to change people in a way in which they're glad to have changed.
If you do it in an authentic way, because you can also be on the other side. There's plenty of people using fear to sell stuff to people.
Yes.
And it's not with the right intention. It's like manipulative selling in a way, and using emotions and people's feeling to take advantage of them. But yeah, I totally agree that if you genuinely believe that the service you're providing to the people is right and is good for them, then don't feel bad about selling it, because like I know, like people told us, like taking this training was life changing, like taking this training was so much more than I thought it would be, and like I'm not in there for the accolade and for the praise, but it's nice to hear it, right? It's satisfying to know that all this effort that I've put into creating this is exceeding your expectation and it's making you feel good. Like that's always something nice to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's a story of marketing through fear, but for a good cause. And so Seth Godin tells the story of how he was working with basically an African water charity. So they were going to villages where they had dirty drinking water and they were giving them clean water. But the problem was nobody wanted to test it because it was unsafe to them in their mind. And so what they did is they were able to get a few people to try it. And then they set up a sort of science class for the kids. And the kids came in and they brought in microscopes, and they basically showed them under the microscope what their water looked like, the dirty water, versus their neighbor's water, which was clean. And then the kids went home and asked their parents, what's with the water? Like, why are there things in our water and not in our neighbors? And then the parents, that tension was there. What do we do? And then they tried the water. And so they basically worked through the kids to change the parents.
Yeah, that's really clever. Yeah, it reminds me of this video that went viral like maybe 10 or 15 years ago of Bill Gates drinking what he called poop water, right? They had this machine like and him trying the water because he believed in his product and using that as a way also to just convince local people to. I don't remember where he was, but yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I remember watching that video, and it shocked people. And that can really help. Like, triggering emotions is a great way to get people to take action or change their mind. Yeah. So what advice can you offer to young people, or just say anyone who is like, man, I really want to start my own business. I'd love to have the independence, the freedom, or I want to be around my kids more, but I just don't feel like I can take that leap of faith because, X% of businesses fail in the first year and so on. Like, they're scared. So what would you say to them to help them get started?
I'd say don't look at the statistic for a start because I don't think it matters that much. If you try, comparing yourself to other people in general in life, is usually not going to get you anywhere. To be honest, it's going to scare the hell out of you more than anything else. I think if you want to create a business, make sure you pick something that you're deeply passionate about and that you care about. Because the truth is that it's hard. It's much harder than what people make it sound like on Instagram and stuff like that. It's creating a business is not going to get you a yacht and a house and everything in the next 24 months, and you're not going to have this lavish lifestyle that you see online. Now, it's hard. It can be lonely based on what you do. It takes a lot of effort. It takes much longer to succeed than what you plan at the beginning. I can tell you for sure. Right? So you need to really care about your business, about whatever it is that you do, to know that you're going to be able to go through the ups and downs of the adventure you're about to start. So make sure that you have a very cliche, but a real why. Like, why are you doing this? And do you really believe in that? Like, I think the way I see it is like, would you do it for free? Would you embark in this adventure and create this whole thing if it makes no money? If the answer is yes, you're on the right path. Because the truth is that you're probably not going to make money for a while anyway, or not enough at least. So if you jump with this mindset, you're not going to be disappointed after 6 months or 12 months because you haven't made it yet. So I think that's probably the most important one, because also, like, if you don't care enough about, you're going to give up at the first challenge that you're going to encounter. And it's normal. I get it. We're all human. It makes sense. So that'll be my first advice, really. Make sure you know why you're doing that. And also, I would say, do it for the right reason. And what I mean by that is, don't do it because other people are doing it. Don't do it because you think it's cool. Don't do it because your parents want you to do it. Don't do it because you feel you have to do it. I don't know, all those stuff. Do it because you want. Because again, like, it's not going to be as easy as you think it might be. And it depends on your goal in life. But I think if your goal in life is to do something that fulfills you every day, maybe the answer to that is creating your business, but maybe your answer to that could also be join a startup, or, like, there's many ways to find joy and fulfillment into work. Work doesn't have to be boring. Work doesn't have to be this horrible thing that people talk about online and stuff like that. Like, work can be fun and fulfilling, and and it can really bring you good stuff. I think it's just about finding alignment between what you want and what you do. And that can take many forms. It doesn't have to be becoming an entrepreneur. And the reason I'm saying now is not to be like negative or whatever, but I feel maybe since COVID or for the past like 5 years, I feel it's becoming trendy to be a business owner. It's cool, because I think social media and because we see it more online. I don't really know the reason, but I feel it's becoming cool. I feel a lot of people get into it just because they've seen Elon Musk doing this and this person doing that and whatever. And you need to remember that what you see online is only the highlights, right? It doesn't show you the hustle and the grind behind closed doors. And yeah, it's like people always tell me, I'm a nomad, so I travel around the world and I work when I want, how much as I want. And when I say that to people, they're all like, "Oh my God, you're so lucky. This is my dream, blah, 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 blah." And I am lucky. Don't get me wrong. I don't take it for granted. I am very grateful to be able to live the life that I live. But it's not as flamboyant as you believe it is. Like, I don't show you the 6 hours I spend in Starbucks working. I don't show you like that I work until 1 or 2 a.m. every day because, well, this morning I want to go to visit this place and the work has to be done. So if I don't work during the day, I need to work at night. Like all those stuff, like you don't talk about it so much, right? It doesn't make the headlines on paper and the media, but there is a reality behind what you see, and it's important to have it in mind, I think.
Yeah, I really liked your LinkedIn post that was basically saying the same thing, right? Like you don't see, and there's another person who says something like, I have to live my full film, but you only get to see the highlights on social media.
Yeah,
the best
the trailer. Yeah.
So you're comparing your gag reel to my highlights.
Yeah.
And of course, my highlights will win. So yeah.
Yeah, they win, 100%.
So how much rejection have you faced in your life, and what has it taught you?
Oof. I think the first thing that came to mind when you said that is it's not like a specific person, but it's people, I guess, like a lot in my family, to be honest. Now that I think about it, and it's not rejection in a sense of you're not good enough to make that, to achieve that. It's more rejection in a sense of, I think it's coming from a right place from them, but it's, why are you, I don't know, when I moved to Miami in 2017, I was living in France, moved to Miami, they just didn't understand at all why the hell I would move to this country so far away from them. Probably that was the main problem, but they didn't say that. But why would you go there and kind of like, not start over again, but like create a new life for yourself over there. And then once I decided to quit my job in 2021 to embark into this entrepreneurial journey and travel the world, it's like, why would you do this? Why don't you buy this stable life that everyone wants and that we have, and that is going to guarantee you a paycheck at the end of the month, and you have a roof over your head? And I didn't get rejected, but I didn't get a lot of encouragement. Like every time I was exposing, like, no, but this is really what I want. Like I spent months and months thinking about it, making a decision that it was the right thing for me to quit my job and to try this, because I just don't want to have the regret of I haven't tried it. Like I didn't receive much support at all. It was all, this is the list of 1,000 things that is going to happen to you if you do that, and it's all negative, and this is how you're going to screw up. This is why you should not do it. it's like, I get it, like you love me and you're worried about me and and you're not doing it in a malicious way, but it's not helping me either, right? Like, it's not it's not really. Um, so to I had to do a lot of like inner work, which luckily I've done while I was in Miami because I've met the right people to like kind of like mentor me and stuff like that. But I don't pay too much attention to what people say or people think about me. I don't seek for external validation. That's why I don't have Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, all that. Like I understood a few years ago that I was just chasing the wrong things by posting this and that, and that it wasn't really bringing much to my life. And I was to spend those 2 hours reading a book rather than scrolling for no reason. Um, and and also I understood that the people rejecting you or not supporting you, usually what they're telling you, they're kind of saying that to themselves. It's not personal. It's not because they're rejecting you or they're not supporting you that they don't like you. It's usually because they're dealing with their own insecurities, and it's hard for them to accept it. So they're going to project that onto you because maybe what you're doing is what they've been dreaming about for decades, and they've never had the balls to do it, or the balls, or the capacity, or the chance, or could be plenty of things. Um, and and I think as human, a lot of people have this thing of like, if I'm not going to make it, I don't want you to make it neither. This form of jealousy, I don't know. And so yeah, so I understood a few years ago that what people think is what people think. It's their opinion, and it's nothing else. It's not the truth. It doesn't define me. Um, and that's true for the good and the bad as well. I thought also, like, if people tell you you're amazing, it's just an opinion. Like, it doesn't mean you are. And yeah, so I'm really detached with all that, and I know my worth. I know what I can do. I know what I want, and I work my ass off to achieve my vision. And honestly, like, if you're if you're on my side, if you're like with me, cool, thank you. I really appreciate it. If you know, it's fine. I'm not gonna. I'm just. I might keep my distance. Like, do your thing. I do my thing. It doesn't bother me. I don't bother you. And that's kind of it.
So is your family, like, are your parents more supportive now that you've quote unquote made it?
No, they
What
still
do they say?
don't understand. They still don't fully understand it, I think. Uh, and the truth is that they just don't ask me anything that much anymore. Don't know why. It's something that I always wonder.
Have you
But
tried reaching out?
I tried, but then when you're talking to a wall, eventually you kind of give up. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's not the right thing to do, but yeah, I've tried and it didn't go. It didn't lead to anything. It didn't go anywhere. So I'm kind of like, okay. If you don't care, I'm not going to force you to care. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think in general, people are afraid or scared of what they don't understand. And I think this is the case here. Like, my parents have had the same job since they were like 20 or 21 years old, doing the same thing for the past 40 years. Lived in the same place than they were living like 50 years ago. And I think change has never been part of their life at all. And having me doing all those weird things, changing job or changing countries, or doing something that doesn't fit the mold of what society tells you should be doing, is so foreign to them that it's like I would speak Chinese to them. It's just completely incomprehensible, I think, for them. And rather than trying to understand, and rather than trying to to understand why I'm doing this and now, it's more like shutting down and like, I don't know, I'm protecting myself. I don't want this thing to affect me, so I'm just gonna put a wall there, you know? Yeah, is what it is.
Yeah, there was an early interview I did that really shifted my paradigm on this because it was with like a 20-year-old League of Legends coach who had previously played League of Legends professionally. And initially, his parents didn't get it, and slowly over time, they were more supportive.
Yeah.
But the day after I published that interview, he sent me a message and he said his dad texted him. And the text said, I feel like I understand you better as my son because of that interview.
Oh wow, wow,
And
that's
so
powerful.
that really impacted me because I thought to myself, wow, I'm doing something I love and it is impacting families across the world in a positive way. It's connecting parents and their children. So if that continues to remain true and I keep doing it, of course I can eventually make a living from it, right? Because it's a positive value for them.
Yeah,
And that really changed my thing. And then I realized, wow, it really helps if two people can't connect or understand each other. It really helps if there's a third person who talks to one of them, and then the other person just watches that or listens to that and gets a completely different perspective.
yeah, uh, yeah. It's such a yeah, it is super powerful. The thing is, like, you do need to have the curiosity and the willingness not to change, but to look at the other side. You need to have this little thing of curiosity to look like. My parents don't have that, like, no, at all. Uh, which is very funny. Sometimes I do wonder, like, why I am who I am. Knowing where I come from, I often wonder why I am who I am. I don't have the answer, but um, yeah, it is amazing, and but people needs people. You need to want to change inside to be able to change. You can't force someone to become uh, someone else if they don't have at least 1% of willingness to change within them. And that's something I understood again a few years ago, and that's why also I'm not pushing things or forcing things because I can't. Just like I'm not maybe who they would like me to be, like I can't force them to be the parents I would like them to be. Like I respect that they're all there and we're all different. It's what it is.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have that respect for individuality. And there's this saying I really like. It's something like change occurs when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing.
Yes, I love this one. Yeah, and this is what motivates me. Like this, the fact that I don't want to wonder. Uh, there is a book I haven't read it, but I've heard a lot about it. I think it's called what it's something along the line of what people regret the most on the deathbed, and I think it's this woman who went to I don't know how many hospice and hospital, and she talked to plenty of people about to die within a few days, and she asked them like, "What do you regret? What are the regret left?" And there was like a top five like emerging out of all those hundreds of conversation, and yeah, one of them was not going for the things that I wanted to do in my life because I was listening to my parents and society and this person and this is something that stuck with me very very hard, and I don't want to wonder what if. I'm just gonna do it, and at least I'll know. And if it was a bad one, it's a bad one, but it's fine. At least I know. Um, but yeah, we are very lucky to live in a world in 2024 that gives us so much opportunity. I get it. Like my parents, my grandparents, they didn't have this chance. Like traveling was very hard and very expensive, right? Like in the first half of the century. Um, they didn't have all the technology and everything to get a job that would allow them to work from anywhere. Usually you lived in a place, you had to find a job within a radius of 20 miles, and that was it, because that was the opportunity that you had were more limited. But now we live in pretty much a limitless world in a way. There's very little that we can't do, and why not take advantage of that? Like, why not? If you can, if you're privileged enough to be able to do it, I think it would be a waste not to try it. Um, and society didn't catch up with that yet. It's still thinking like we were thinking, I feel like 50 years ago, and it's not yet embracing all the opportunities that we have. And it'll be like the problem with school, with education. There's many layers to why that, politics, education, and stuff. But yeah, I want to embrace everything, every opportunity that I can. If I could live in every country in the world to experience it, why not? If I could have plenty of different random jobs just to experience things, just because I want to try it, like, why not? I want to satisfy my curiosity. It's making me a better human being. I'm learning every time I try something. I don't see a reason not to do it. If I can do it, if it's possible, why not? Like, that's really how I go along with it, with everything.
Yeah, I really sense like a kindred spirit in you because for me, curiosity has been my driving motivator since as far as back as I can remember. And I think when you follow your curiosity, you also find stuff that you can do in ways nobody else can.
Mm.
And I think that's the key to entrepreneurship is following your curiosity far enough through that you get to something that you will do so fervently that when you hit the point where everyone else quits, you work twice as hard and you get through that.
Yeah.
And then you have no competition because nobody else is you. Nobody else would put themselves through that.
Yeah. That, and also it is the best way to know what you are passionate about. Because I feel people expect the passion to, like, what am I passionate about? And to, like, fall on the lap. It's like, the truth is that most of the time you need to try a lot of things until you realize, oh, this is something that I'm really connected with. And yeah, you might try 5, 10, 20 different random projects that you thought you liked, but after 6 months you realize that this is not the thing. There's no sparkle here. And then one day you're gonna start something unexpected, and it's just gonna come to you. You don't know why. No explanation, but this is it. And it's like, oh, wow, let's go for it.
For me, it was the podcast. Yeah. Like after the third episode, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And I felt
but you need to have this initial curiosity of, like, I'm gonna try that.
Yeah.
And maybe people told you, like, why? You're not gonna make any money from it. Like, it's good. There's so many podcasts out there. Why? We don't need another one. There's so many people talking to entrepreneurs. We don't need it. Like, all those stuff, right? It's like, yeah, but I'll try it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you're familiar with the French term raison d'être.
Yeah.
Reason for existence or reason for living. There's also a Japanese concept, ikigai. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Now, the difference between ikigai and raison d'être is ikigai within the definition also includes the hunt for that thing. So the very concept of ikigai accounts for the fact that you have to explore and hunt and try and fail to find your ikigai. You're not born with it. Nobody knows it to start with.
Yeah.
And so the Japanese people, because of that, they really do go out and they try and they experiment and they're looking for it.
I do like that. And I think it's important also to get a sense of purpose in a way, which I think a lot of people lack those days. A lot of people live the life on autopilot. When they're 20 years old, when they graduate school or whatever, they go on the rail track and then they follow the rail track, like, for the rest of their life until they retire. And there's no purpose. It's just following along. Like, you're on the track and that's it. And the truth is that I think to live a happy life and fulfilling life and to feel right here, you need to have a sense of purpose. You need to have why everyone hates Monday? I don't get that. Like, why people wake up every Monday saying, I can't wait for Friday? It's like, dude, like, if you spend 5 days a week out of 7 doing something that you hate so much that you wish you could skip it, why are you doing it? Why do you keep going? Like, try something else. It's not going to be the end of the world if you try something else and it doesn't work anyway. You're already miserable. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, and yeah, like having this purpose, this in general, because it's not just with a business, right? So with everything in life, I think knowing what you're looking for and having something to look for, like something out there, is so vital to the human experience, I would say, and necessary.
Yeah, I think there's a deep sort of emptiness that comes with a life without meaning, without purpose. And people seek it, right? Through religion, through meditation, through whatever form. But I think as long as they accept certain things as true that aren't true, right? As long as their beliefs are limiting them. Like if they
Yeah,
think, I cannot live a life without my current job, or I cannot live a life without going to university, whatever it is.
yeah,
And then they trap themselves in a prison of their own making. And then I often see that lead to like bitterness and resentment at the people who believe different things and who succeed. And then they're like, well, those people got lucky, or those people's parents were rich, or whatever it is, whatever excuse you can come up with. And I feel like those excuses are just your defense mechanism so you don't have to change your beliefs. Because if you were really challenged by what they did and you said, oh, I could do that too. If they could do it, why can't I do it? But then you'd have to take action.
that's exactly why I got started with all this. Like, moving to Miami for me in 2018 was life changing because until then, so for the first 30 years of my life, I was living in France and I was exposed to people and an environment that I was very familiar with, let's say, very similar to me. So nothing kind of challenging my brain and challenging the way I saw life, because everything was kind of the same. And I moved to Miami in 2018 and I met very different people, like a very different environment, different people, different mindset, doing different, I don't know, like, hey, I want to be a TikToker. Hey, I have a business about this. I have like plenty of random things. Like, what are those people doing? Like, how that looks like TV in a way. And what I understood was those people are just like me. They're my friends. They're not special. They don't have any superpowers. They're not rich. They're as intelligent as I am. Like they just have the willingness to try and to go for it. Like that was the main thing, really. But seeing that with my own eyes and seeing it from people that were just like me, like the same age, the same similar background, similar everything, I was like, they're just ordinary people. And those ordinary people are the one creating those amazing things and living the dream life. And it's like, well, if they couldn't do it, why can't I? And that was like really like planting the seed of this whole change of lifestyle. It was really realizing that if they can do it, I can probably do it. Like I'm not less than anything. Like I'm just, we're the same people. I could do it probably. And yeah, that was, it sounds so simple, but that was life changing because suddenly it was like, okay, then if I look at life with this mindset now, what can I do? And that's where suddenly the world becomes a playground and becomes massive with endless possibilities. But until you can see that, yeah, you are in a bubble. And
Yeah, so it really helps to expose yourself. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger tells this great story. He was born in a small village in Austria, and everyone there was like basically a factory worker or a farmer. There was like nothing else.
right,
And his parents thought he would become a factory worker or a farmer. And he was like walking down the streets of some city one day or something. He was visiting, and he saw a poster of Mr. Universe. And he was like, in that poster, he saw the blueprint for what his life could be because he was seeking, he was searching. So then he went to America against his parents' wishes, and he was in the gym 6 hours a day, and he was doing intense exercise. He was in a lot of pain, and he had a smile on his face all the time. And people would ask him, "Why are you smiling?" And he said, "Because I can see that Mr. Universe trophy in front of me. For every push-up I do, every bench press, whatever, I see it getting closer and closer." And then he won it like 3 times.
I love that. It reminds me of the quote of Steve Jobs that I love, and I'm not gonna get it right, but it's like, look around. Everything that's been created around you has been created by humans that are no different than you. Something along those lines, right? And it's like, yeah, like when you look at the world, when you look at everything that you own around you, the TV, your phone, your laptop, your camera, the buildings and everything, the plane passing by, everything has been created by another human being. And when you let that sink in really and take it, it's like, okay, those human beings were just that, human being just like me. So yeah, I really love this interview and this quote that he did a while ago. It's really powerful when you really let it go to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once people realize what they're capable of, that really unleashes their potential and who they can be. But really, it's not our capability that's stopping us. It's our own beliefs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all mindset. We skills can be learned. I mean, and again, you can learn anything that you want on YouTube. Literally anything that you want those days. So not knowing how to do a website, not knowing how to insert whatever skill that you think, it's not an excuse anymore. It's just that it is an excuse. It is an excuse you're telling yourself not to get started, because you can learn anything for free those days. And so it's all about having the courage, the vulnerability, the whatever it is to start, because skill sets are not the issue anymore at all. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's this ironic idea that it has never been easier to be great in today's world, to be in the top 1%, let's say, which to me isn't even that great, but let's just say that as a benchmark. So it turns out that 90% of podcasts never get past the third episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then of those remainder 10%, 90% of those never get past the 25th episode. So when I published the 26th episode, I was in the top 1% of podcasts of all time. And it's the same thing. Like if you go to the gym 3 times a week for 6 months, you're probably in the top 1% of people for fitness.
Wow. Yeah.
Because most people aren't doing it. So when you look at it from that lens, not only has it never been easier to surpass most people, it's also never been more available, the resources and the cost. Like the fact that we're doing this right now, this would have cost a production team and like tens of thousands of dollars just like 2 decades ago. Less than a generation ago. Yeah.
I mean, all we need is that those days. Like you don't even need the laptop and everything. Like, you can do so much with this little rectangle. You can start a business. You can start a show like that on your phone. I think a lot of people also spend too much time focusing on the wrong things. Like, I need the right microphone. I need the right this. I need the right, like, looking for the perfect gear for whatever they want to do. When, again, like you can get started so easily with anything. You can literally do anything with your phone and your shitty microphones that are provided with it when you buy it. We are very good at producing excuses not to do things, even if we say we want to do them in general.
I heard you help Alvi, your friend, get over that and just start a podcast with a $20 mic or whatever it was, right?
Yeah, and yeah, it was nothing more nice. Like, you want to start a podcast, do it. Like, and let's do it together. And we started our podcast at the same time, just before COVID. I think it was January 2020. But yeah, sometimes we just need a little nudge to see what's possible, because we get caught up into our own BS like we are so good at, we are our worst enemy very often, right? Our worst critic, stuff like that. Like and and sometimes a gentle push or a gentle kick in a from the outside is all we need to get past this fear. I'm not going to be able to do it. Yeah, all we need is a little nudge or a little kick to get started, because we are very close to the line. We're very close to get started, but we have, I don't know, this little devil on our shoulder telling us that we're not good enough, or we need this extra thing to be able to do it, or whatever. And sometimes we just need a friendly reminder that it's going to be all right. You can get started. You don't need this fancy this, or you don't need this, don't need that. Just get started, and it'll be all right. And most of the time, it is all right, right?
Yeah. And I think this is one of the weaknesses of being, quote unquote, smart, because smart people can be very good at their own intelligence turning on them to simulate all the ways in which
Oh,
something will fail, so they never get started. And so that's why,
I
like,
see.
so many people, quote unquote, dumber than you can just start a business and do something and succeed, because they're not thinking about all that. They're just like, oh, I can mow this lawn and I make money. All right, I'll mow someone else's lawn, I'll make more money, and so on. And I think that's, yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. There is something to be said about not overthinking stuff,
yeah,
and there's something to be said about looking at things from, I think it's called like first principle, right? Like looking at things from like a blank sheet of paper,
yeah,
and looking at this thing for what it is, rather than this complicated puzzle that you're creating in your head that is going to scare the shit out of you. If you look at it very basically, very easily, you will create less friction to get started. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
No, yeah, so very good point.
Yeah, and when you think about it, like, people, you don't need to know enough to succeed. You just need to know enough to take the first step, and then the first step will teach you enough to take the second step, and it cascades. And then by the time you get to the thing you thought you needed to know to succeed, it will seem obvious or easy.
Yeah, and just when like a lot of people say, there's often this imposter syndrome, right? About, but I don't have the skills, the knowledge to teach people to do that. It's like, to teach people things, you just need to know a little bit more than they do. Like, you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be able to fly a rocket yourself to tell them about rocket. You just need to know more people, and then it's just about organizing and curating your thoughts and what you know in a way that is digestible for them. But you don't need to be an expert to do everything. You just need to know, let's say, 5 or 10% more than than everyone else, to be able to teach them something.
Yeah, and the best way to learn is to teach.
Yeah, it's the best experience ever.
So I'm curious, how do you feel now that you've moved away from your natural environment of like engineering, physics, all of that stuff, into like business and so on, operations, people management?
It's interesting because I think I got into, yeah, it's called engineering. Um, I mean, you make those decisions in life very early, right? Because of the school system. So when I was like 15, 16, at this time, like that's when I decided to go this way. And I think I picked, like, the reason I went to like a software developer school with a specialization in robotics. So back then it was, I mean, we didn't have as many automation and robot that we have now. So it was very like early. I think the reason I picked that is because somehow I knew that it was a good move, like strategically, like that it was something that would be the future in a way. So I picked that not because I was deeply passionate about it. I wasn't I wasn't this nerdy kid teenager that was building websites and coding stuff and whatever. Like, I wasn't that person. Um, but I knew that was a clever move, a clever way, clever things to explore for my future. So that's the reason I got into it. And after a while, after like working in this field from 20, because I graduated in 2011, so I got my first job in September 2011, and until like 2015, I was a software developer. And honestly, I didn't like it that much. I wasn't really fulfilled. Like I could do it, but it wasn't bringing me any joy at all. And I wasn't really passionate about it. It wasn't something that was exciting me. And luckily, because it is pure luck here, I got in. I was doing some consulting job, and the person who was working in the agency where I was a consultant for knew this person starting a startup, and was like, "My friend is starting a startup. I think you guys would get along together. They need someone to do plenty of different things because it's just three of them at the moment. So until we find something more aligned with your resume, if you want to go and check them out, you can spend a few months with them." Because I was like in between, I just finished my previous project, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? Let's check it out." And that was not looking at it, that was my way out of software development and engineering and stuff like that. Because that's where I basically started there without really knowing what I would be doing because there was so much to do because the startup was like 6 months old. And I started to do like quality, quality verification. And then I did like customer support. And then it's like, oh, we need to create a platform to be able to do this. Okay, let's find something. And that's how I got myself into like operation and stuff like that. And then because I was very early in the company, then when the team was growing, I was like managing a team, which I've never done before. I didn't know how to do, but it was like a natural evolution. So it was really in 2015 that I kind of got myself out of my original training formation and degree, and explored other paths. And the 6 years that I spent working for this startup, first in France and then in the US, really opened my eyes to what all the options that you had, that creating a business was possible, that there are other things that I could be doing, like realizing that I could be good at other things than what I've learned in school was very interesting, right? It was a aha moment, like, oh, I don't have to be a software engineer for the next 30 years. I could actually do something else, and I can manage it all right. I might not be the best, but I can do it. So that was really interesting to realize that. And then on top of that, meeting, like I said, the right people in Miami who helped change my mindset and see what was possible out there. That was like, okay, like I can do what the hell I want, basically.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I mean, again, like we discussed, right? Once you're exposed, you can't. Once the curtain opens, you can't close it again, and then you realize. So,
which I think a lot of people just are not probably. I think that that was probably my lucky moment. I think we give too much praise to luck. Like very often people say, "Oh, he just got lucky." Most of the time it's just because of hard work that you get somewhere, not because of luck. But luck comes here and there, and I think I was lucky to be exposed to this startup environment kind of randomly. Like it wasn't planned. Like I should have not been there really. But I got lucky to have this person, knowing the right person at the right time, and finishing my project at the right time. And that was my lucky moment, I think, that got me exposed to that, which I think when you're following a path, a career, very often you don't get exposed to anything else if you don't seek it very actively. So I think, that was a little bit of luck, but I mean, we all need it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two good sayings on that. One is luck is preparation meeting opportunity.
Mm.
And so you wouldn't, like, 100 other people might have said no to the startup, but you said yes, right? And that's the second one, which is just when the student is ready, the master appears.
Mm.
So it was at the point in your life where you're like, do I really want to be a software dev forever? And then boom, this opportunity comes up and it's like, oh, we need you for a bunch of other roles because it's a startup. And that's great because you can explore what you like, what you're good at, what you can do, and so on.
Yeah, I've never seen it this way, but maybe I was unconsciously ready to change, because you don't always know, right? Like it's always easy to look at it years later, but when you're in the thick of it, it's not always obvious, right?
Yeah.
Because it's funny why you say that. I got a funny story that I went for the first interview with the startup just to meet them and get a sense of everything. And when I got back home, I was complaining to my wife, like, oh man, this is gonna be a pain to go. Like the commute is gonna be so long every day. I was looking for so many reasons for I don't know why. I was like complaining a lot about it. And my wife was like, you don't know, maybe it's gonna be the best thing that ever happened to you. Like we say, you know? And I was like, no, it won't. It's gonna be a fucking pain in the ass. I'm gonna have to wake up every morning at 6 a.m. and commute for like an hour and a half. I'm gonna have to come back every day very late, blah 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 blah. She was right. She was very right.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes people know. It's really interesting to me because, yeah, there's so much. We just can't predict what will be good and what will be bad.
Yeah.
And, it takes years
Yeah.
to find out. So when you are looking to work with people or hire someone, how do you qualify them? How do you judge them? What do you look for?
Hiring is very hard, honestly.
Yeah.
Hiring people is so hard. And like I started like dealing with that when I was working for this startup. And I struggled a lot at the beginning because when you post an ad, about something, like there's so many people that qualified on paper for it. And you talk to a bunch of people and they all look very good. But then what I understood is that I need to pay much more attention to the person, the human, and the human skills more than the skills on a resume. And maybe the person that is less qualified will be a better fit for the team than the person with more qualification. That took me a few trial and error working with people that didn't went too well, but yeah, once I understood that was a key moment, and I've never learned that before, so I had to learn it the hard way in a way. But that was very important. I think those days I want someone that I can trust, because like I said, like most skills can be learned, so I don't need to find the best person at whatever skills I need, but I need to know that human skills are harder to learn. It's harder to learn to be kind. It's harder to learn to be compassionate. It's harder to learn to be a good human being. So I need to make sure that I work with people that I like, that I connect with, that are aligned with the vision of the business, and that we can trust. Because again, the truth is that when you are a small team and a startup, and when you take the leap to delegate and to pay someone to do a job for you, which is for a small company, it's a big decision because investing this money is a big thing. You need to know that the person you're going to be working with is going to deliver on the job. And I need to trust this person fully because I have a million other things to do and I can't micromanage and keep an eye on you every minute of the day. Like I need to know that when you tell me this is going to be done, it's going to be done. So now the way we have been expanding the team is very different than a traditional way. Is We work a lot with our students, with our graduates, for example, because we spend 6 months with them, as like, yeah, they take the training for 6 months, so we get to know them. And when we have a good feeling about someone, when we have a connection with someone, we often tell them like, hey, we need someone to do this. We like you. We have seen you for the past 6 months. We know that you're a reliable person. We know that our values are aligned. We know that, this and that, whatever. Would you be interested to work with us, and that's been pretty good so far, to be honest. That's been the best way. That's been the best way to grow the team, is to find people that we have a connection with, and from there we are pretty much we know deep down that they will be able to do whatever job that we need them to do, because yeah, we can guide them through that. But at least we know that this initial connection is there, and we know that they're going to work with the team. They know that we're going to be able to trust them. They know that they will be, they'll be a good fit. And so that's what I pay attention to those days, is the person behind the resume, behind this. I mean, not that I look for a resume anyway, but the human is much more important than the brain, the skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking back, I realized that maybe just one of my jobs I got because of my resume. Every other job I really got because of who I was.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's like...
Which is very interesting when you think about, right? Because I think all of us, when we go for a job interview, we put this facade that we wear clothes that we would never wear. We all like try to show someone that we know. We try to answer the question perfectly. Like we are so fake in a way in the job interview, and yeah, I don't know. It's quite ironic when when I think about it.
Yeah, and I think I used to do that in my early 20s, but then more recently I've realized that's such a waste of potential, because, and I think this applies to relationships as well. The advice is really be honest, because the worst thing that can happen is not that they reject you, but that they accept you for who you're not.
Yes.
And then the relationship is built on a lie, and you have to keep up the lie, and that becomes expensive for you, and it can hurt you in the long run. You might need therapy to fix it and then find yourself again. And so, like my most recent interview for a job, they asked about my podcast, and I was happy to talk about it, and I asked the interviewer about a book she was writing, because she was writing a nonfiction, like business book. I was like, okay, that's cool. So we had a genuine human conversation. And then I got that job out of like 2,700 applicants or something. And that job, they didn't even ask for resumes, right? They just needed you to write an email in, sharing some stories of past experience. They wanted to see your writing style and so on. So like, all of that just makes me realize, I think the way work is done today is differently. And Alex Hormozi talks about how companies are really underestimating the value of creating content. Because if you create content, people see your content. So now when someone applies to work with Alex, they already know his company's values, his company's mission. They're already aligned. They've pre-qualified themselves because they've watched 20 hours of his videos already, and they like him as a person. So that's a much better employee to apply to you than some random person who just needs a job and doesn't care what it is.
Yeah, who's never seen anything that you're doing. Yeah. It's interesting also because if I look at it from a business standpoint, hiring someone is expensive. Hiring the wrong person is very expensive. It's very costly.
Yes.
Because there is the process of hiring someone. There is a time and energy invested into what it takes to organize everything. And then if you hire someone, like, you can't, maybe you have a gut feeling after a week that this is not the right person, but you always want to give a chance to the person. So you always wait a few months, and all this time is just can be wasted, right? For the both of us also.
Exactly.
And it's doing a disservice to the company and to the person doing the job to do this, to put this facade and this fake and those lies, because it's not sustainable. It's a waste of time for both sides, a waste of money, and it can damage your business, honestly. So I think we underestimate as business owners the importance of hiring right. I don't think we are taught the importance of picking the right people, and sometimes it's better not to hire someone than to hire the wrong person.
Absolutely.
Just be a bit more patient. There's a good book about that from a guy who worked at Google. I can't remember the name now. It's called Work Rules by Laszlo someone. Yeah, it's a very good book from a guy who worked at Google, and he explained like how they hired people at Google, what they were looking for, and stuff like that. It's really, really insightful book about it.
Yeah, and Steve Jobs has talked about why it's so important to hire only A players. And once you get like five of them, at that point they'll self, eliminate anyone who's not one of them. So like the sixth person, you just say, okay, talk to these five people. If any one of them says no, you don't get the job, right? And then
it's
the team can expand by itself, and I think that's great. And I think there's this also idea from Valve, the software company that makes Steam and all of those games, Dota 2, Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
And they have this amazing Valve employee handbook that I love reading it like every few months. And in there, they talk about, we try to consciously hire people more powerful than ourselves. Because if you're not careful, a company will hire someone who is not as threatening to them, who doesn't seem better than them, and so on. And then the company just dilutes itself. You get worse and worse people. But imagine if you consciously looked for people who were better than you, who were more driven than you, and so on. They were people who you might feel threatened by. But you have to realize that, the health of the company comes first. And ultimately, they'll find their own role. They're not going to take yours. That's just not how it works.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it, right? Because if you're delegating a task, let's say marketing, and you want to hire someone, it's a much better business decision to hire someone that knows much more than you at marketing than the opposite, right? Because at least this is going to benefit the business, and the skill will benefit the business, and also you're going to learn from the person. It's also going to benefit you in a way. But yeah, then the ego gets in the way, right? And it's like, yeah, I'd rather hire a junior so I can mentor him. But no, the truth is that you want to hire someone that's going to make you feel better by yourself.
Yeah, you should hire someone who will mentor you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
The way a business can accelerate itself decades is by hiring someone who's already spent 20 years making mistakes on someone else's dime and can bring that expertise to you. And now you're 20 years ahead on the marketing game or whatever it is. And that's amazing.
Yeah, you don't have to do the same mistakes.
Yeah, Alex Ramosi has this great story he tells where he says, some of his first employees, they paid $30K a year to, and those employees might have generated like $100K in value. Then he remembers like his first big ticket employee. I think he was a salesman he paid $300K to. And he was like, oh my God, this is so much money. But then the salesman generated over $5 million in sales. Wow. So the ratio of value was greater. And then he said, the first time I hired, I think it was a CFO, and he paid that person $2 million. He's like, this was more than I had ever paid anyone, not even close. And that CFO in the first 6 months saved them over $20 million. And she was like, I just want to make sure that I'm paying for myself. And then after that, she continued to add more value. So it's like, it's like 3x, 10x, 50x, whatever it is. The ratio of value just goes up and up. So it kind of shows the value of not skimping out on hiring excellent people and paying whatever the cost might be.
Which also, I want to say that it's not easy when you're a small business with not much capital.
That's where equity comes in.
That's also something. That's why also it's not easy to get started when you're starting by yourself, is because you need to grind your way there.
Absolutely.
Before you can do that.
And I think that's a really good sign of aligning interests and wanting to work with someone, is if they're willing to take equity as part of their compensation. That shows they believe in the company's potential, they believe in the value.
Yeah.
And that's purely aligned. Whereas if they're just like, no, I'm a mercenary, I just want the money, then it's like, well, do we really want to work with you? Probably not.
Yeah. No, yeah, because also that the person you want someone, especially at this early stage, that is there in the long run, right? That's going to stick around for a few years, and it's a good sign of loyalty, right? It's what we need.
Absolutely, and they'll grow with the company, and they'll treat it like they own it because they do, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So okay, let's close out the podcast. So just to summarize, we discussed, your journey into entrepreneurship, your advice for entrepreneurs, which was really find something you're passionate about and you really love, and that takes a lot of testing and time, and that's okay. Don't be afraid to get started. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to change your path part way. It's usually a lot less expensive than it seems, and usually it's a lot more expensive to stay in an undesirable state for too long. I remember the first job I quit was really because it was shortly after my boss had told me, you can stay here until you retire. We'll take care of you. And I was like, I thought about that and I was like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want to get comfortable and complacent and do the same thing. I want to go somewhere where I can learn and grow. So I left.
I don't know who said that.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it from Tim Ferriss, but I don't know the original quote where it's coming from. But we spend too much time focusing on, this is a risky move to change job. But what you should be asking yourself is, what are the risks to stay in my current position?
Yes.
And we never think about that. We never do. And that's true for business or human, like relationship, right? What is it costing me right now to be in a relationship with this person rather than changing? And it's not an easy exercise, but very powerful if you can be honest about it, I think.
Yeah, Alex Hormozy has this great story he tells where he was at a presentation, a seminar, and there was this salesperson up on stage closing the audience. But what he said was, he asked a woman, how much do you earn? He said, oh, 50K a year. And then he wrote 50,000 on the whiteboard, and then he put $1 million above it, and he subtracted the two, and he showed negative 950,000. And he said, this is a debt you're paying every year. You're going into debt $950,000 every year because you don't yet have the knowledge to make $1 million a year.
It's powerful.
And we're paying that ignorance debt in everything that we do. So there's a cost to not learning, to not changing, to not trying, not experimenting. Yeah. So just to close out, what sort of closing advice could you give to people in their lives to live more fulfilling lives? Because clearly you've built your life very purposefully. So what advice can you give to people to not end up being automatons and instead be actualized, intentional human beings?
I'd say it's a pretty easy one, to be honest, but is listen to yourself more than other people. Because the truth is that a lot of people might give you advice without any, so many people give you financial advice and they're broke. So many people give you business advice and they've never started a business. Right? So, people are going to share their opinion with you, whether you want it or not, but don't make your own decision based on what other people think, because they don't know better than you. Like, you know deep down what's right for you. You know what you want. You know what makes you happy. You know what you want to achieve. Focus on that and give more importance to that than to other people's opinion. I'm not saying to completely discard everything, but, in a balanced way, like, follow your own feeling more than other people's feelings. And it doesn't mean you're going to succeed. It doesn't mean you're going to get it right, but at least you won't regret trying anything. Maybe after 1 year, you're going to be like, that was not what I thought it would be. And you're going to go back to where you were before. And that's fine. But you would have tried it, and you won't be wondering what if, which I think is the most important. So yeah, just people, I think, are too disconnected from their own gut feeling, I think, and follow your heart, your brain, your guts, whatever part of your body you want to follow. But listen to yourself more than to other people, I think, because you know what works for you. You know what's right for you, I think, and no one else can tell you what's right for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's very timely advice. And I'm really grateful for having you on the show, Jeremy. You've changed my perspective on a lot of things. You've given me some good
Thank you.
insights to chew on. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and for having me. We appreciate it.